Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we stand Kiddy Kong. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as I am always joined, by my co-host Mark Mitchell. Mark, how you doing?
Patrick, I am grateful every week when we get to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
And tonight I am feeling especially grateful to have this opportunity to just hang out with you and talk about Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, and just, revel in this fun moment that we have to spend together.
That was truly a world-weary pause on your end. Patrick, look, obviously there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now, but we are talking about, as you said, Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, which is going to be a very fun conversation. But before we have that very fun conversation, I'm afraid we have a much more serious conversation about my copy of Sonic Forces. Would you like to borrow it? You can, or you can get on a list to do so by emailing us at nintendocartridgesociety@gmail.com and giving us a mailing address where we can put the game into an envelope and address it with that address and send it to you. You get to play my copy of Sonic Forces for as long as you want and then send it back. I include return postage, and it is addressed already. So it's a zero effort on your part proposition, other than, of course, the effort that goes into emailing us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. But of course, Mark, this is not a zero cost proposition, right? What may it cost you to try to borrow Sonic Forces?
Your soul?
No, come on. You may get my copy of Untitled Goose Game.
Yes, of course, that's right.
The goose will, of course, collect your soul. You may not request one game over the other. Whichever game you get is the one you get. Either way, you got to return it. Either way, it's in a Sonic Forces box. So, when you open it up, don't be like, oh, I got Sonic Forces. You have no way of knowing. Mark, should we just get into it? I feel like we're going to have a lot to say about DKC3.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm really excited.
Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, ! Came to the Super NES Nintendo Switch Online service right at the end of the year, right? Like maybe a couple days before Christmas.
Yeah, I think it was the December update, like in mid-December.
Yeah, I think it was even later, like December 23 or something along those lines. Might have been a little bit earlier. Look, it's all in the past. Who cares? The game originally came out on the Super NES in 1996, so like a super late Super NES title. Mark, had you ever played this game before?
No, which listeners of the show will remember that I really like, I'll even say love, the original Donkey Kong Country, but I had never really played Donkey Kong Country 2 until we did it for the early days of the show.
Diddy's Kong Quest.
Yeah, when we played it on the Wii U Virtual Console, and I had never, ever, like, even dabbled with the third one, and I knew it only by reputation, which is not, like, horrible, but people regard it as, like, a step down from the second title.
And people consider that second title to be a step up from the original, which I would say is not an opinion that you and I share with the rest of the community. When you and I played DKC2 for this show, I think you and I both had kind of a hard time with it. That there was a lot of sort of sameness in like level aesthetics, and the sort of, Rare as a company has this kind of aesthetic which is very like European animation, very like English animation, where like things just have like big eyes and like aren't cute, but like have a cuteness to them. I don't know if I'm making sense. There's an
No,
aesthetic that I think you and I both have a hard time wrapping our heads around.
exactly. Where it's like, I feel like, okay, I'm going to make a large, gross generalization,
I
but my
love this. Do
feeling
it.
is that one of the, like when I think of Japanese animation, it is like cute, and European animation is like, well, if we make it ugly enough, it'll be cute. And I feel like that's like the
Right.
rare aesthetic.
It's something that you see like out of Ubisoft, like from the Rabbids. Like the Rabbids share this aesthetic. It's almost like a Wallace and Gromit quality, like Rare, especially during this time in like the mid '90s, was sort of just like going eyeball crazy, putting eyeballs on everything to make it like cute. Which is also, I guess, it's not really like an un-Nintendo thing, right? Like in the Mario universe, everything has eyes on it. You collect a star or a fire flower, it's got two pairs. It's got a pair of eyes on it. So like maybe I shouldn't be like narrowing it in on that as something that I don't like. But I think there was another aspect happening to Donkey Kong Country 2, and that I do not see in Donkey Kong Country 3, and it is one of the things that I'm going to say right from the outset makes me like this game more than Donkey Kong Country 2. It is that 90s rude rock and roll aesthetic. Do you know what I'm talking about? When you beat levels in Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong holds a boombox up to his head and like kind of rocks out to it, or Dixie takes out a guitar and shreds on it, and you get this little like music clip of them going like me 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 little. There is nothing like that in this game outside of Funky Kong, and there's no accounting for Funky Kong. He is what he is. But there is no like rude dudes with tudes in Donkey Kong Country 3.
Yeah, and that's such a good point. I hadn't really thought about it because like Donkey Kong Country 2, it definitely has that like blue raspberry radical like sense about it. I wonder if it's because Donkey Kong Country 3 like features Diddy Kong so heavily that it takes like a more not Diddy Kong, Kiddy Kong so heavily that like it takes on a more playful aesthetic or playful tone, because like Kiddy Kong is a little too young and world like unaware of hard rock at this point.
He's too naive.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like the next sort of place that makes the most logical sense to like start talking about this is that this is the first Donkey Kong Country game to not feature the character of, no, I guess it's not the first one to not feature Donkey Kong, as he's not in the second one, but neither Donkey or Diddy are in this game. They are now, it is led by Dixie Kong, and Kiddy Kong, who is kind of in the Donkey Kong role, right? He is a baby, but he is a bruiser. He carries the barrel in front of him, like Donkey Kong, or I guess like Diddy did in the previous one.
But he's like the heavy character, right? Like all of these games have like a heavy and light, and so like Kiddy Kong is the one who can take down the larger enemies that like Dixie just bounces off of. So he definitely plays that. He definitely plays the Donkey Kong role.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you say that there is a heavy in all these games, but there isn't a heavy in Donkey Kong Country 2. Like Diddy and
I guess you're
Dixie,
right. Yeah.
Outside of like her hair twirling thing, which like makes them move differently, Diddy doesn't really do something appreciably different. In like the way he moves, or like the amount of like weight he has to his motions. And so like I liked having these sort of two options, the two different ways, the two different like strength sets, so that like when I had Dixie, I felt like I had one set of tools, and when I had Kitty, I had a different set of tools.
Yeah, one of the things I just like on like a series wide basis is how it's like this tag team approach. So you had like Donkey Kong and Diddy Kong in the first game, then Diddy Kong and Dixie Kong, and then Dixie Kong and Kiddy Kong. But when I started playing this game, I was initially like using Dixie as my main, because when we did our ranking of the Kongs, like I think Dixie ended up winning, or at least was very high, and part of it was because like I really like the like her kind of like ability to float by twirling
Yeah.
her hair.
Hmm.
And so I was using her primarily, and I was finding the game like I don't know. I just like wasn't making very much progress, or I just wasn't having like that much fun. But when I switched to using Kitty as my main, then it was like the game like opened up to me weirdly, and it felt like, oh yeah, like I don't know if it's intended that way, but that was like the default configuration that I used throughout the game. Like
Yeah.
I would switch to Dixie when I needed her ability to do something, but primarily I like felt most comfortable using Kitty, which really surprised me.
Well, I think a lot of that is rooted in um, that this game is actually a very good, very competent platformer. And Kitty, when you play as Kitty Kong, it feels very much like a standard platformer, right? Like you are running, you are jumping, you are rolling into the bad guys. And like Dixie's abilities sort of encourage you to be in the air a little bit more. And when you're in the air, when you're traversing too much space in the air, you're sort of vulnerable to attacks and stuff that you wouldn't be if you are playing as Kitty on the ground. You can just start rolling. So like I think the game actually is very smartly designed in that way to because like I remember playing the original Donkey Kong country and using Diddy mostly because he was faster because you
Mm-hmm.
can cartwheel just like a little bit further and really only using Donkey Kong when I needed to like kill those big muscly guys, right? Um, but like the fact that they're both pretty much grounded, means that like the game is a pretty much grounded game. And I liked that that DKC3 sort of presents both. Like you have to approach it both ways. You have to be both grounded and sort of like an aerial player.
Yeah, yeah. I also like I also played as Diddy a lot when I was playing the original game, like you said, just because like he's like faster and everything. But
Hmm.
for whatever reason in this game, I didn't find like Dixie's speed to be super helpful. I also thought that it was interesting that like when you in most instances that it mattered, like using Dixie's like hair to scoop up the barrels, like it was a little too high. Like the trajectory was like not exactly right.
Yeah,
Like that's why I
yeah,
ended up using like Kitty a lot too, because it just felt like in boss battles and things like that, that like
yeah. You
him.
understood where it was going.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, and this is maybe one of the flaws of the game. I didn't actually while I was playing it, I couldn't determine like where I came down on it. But I feel like there are too many times where the game is giving you a little test of like how can you hold on to this barrel long enough to take it to the thing you need to kill to like get through the next little area, like these little like mini puzzles of like what do you have to execute in order to get over there. And with Dixie holding the barrel above her head, if you get too close to an enemy from below,
Hmm.
then it shatters. Whereas Kitty's holding the barrel in front of him, and it just feels like a more natural way to like navigate those spaces.
Yeah, totally. What did you think of so like every level in Donkey Kong Country 3, one of the collectibles that you can find are these like DK coins that are being
Yes.
held by like one of the enemies. And the enemy is holding like the coin like a shield, and depending on
Yes.
where you are standing or like your height, he will like move to follow you. And
Yeah.
so
He can either face left, face right, or hold it above his head.
right. And then, located next to him is a barrel. And then you pick up that barrel, and each is like a mini puzzle, like trying to figure out, like, okay, how do I, knowing that he will face whichever direction I am standing,
Yeah.
like, how do I get this barrel to kill him so I can collect the coin? And I ended up like, by the end, I was not going for each and every one. But in the beginning, I found it like very, like, addicting. Like, I really liked that extra edge to it, that it was more than just like, oh, collecting like the Kongs, or like collecting the
Right.
KONG, or
KONG.
collecting like the doing all the bonus barrels. Like I liked this added element to it.
Yeah, I mean it feeds into the we're a little bit all over the place here, but I think that's okay. There's a lot in this game, and I'm certain that we will cover it all and we'll loop back around to it. There are a lot of collectibles in this game, and they all end up being like differently meaningful. Um, the DK coins, the sort of B explosion coins, the bear coins, the KONGs, and then bananas, and I guess also the banana birds on top of that. um, but yeah, I don't know that I liked the DK coin guys as much as you did. Partially because there is such a stark, for me anyway, there was such a stark difference between the ones that I looked at and immediately understood what I needed to do and could execute on it immediately, and those that I'd never figured out. You know what I mean? Like there were very few where like I encountered them and was like, how am I supposed to do this? And then like kind of walked around for a minute and then was like, oh, I get it. I either knew immediately or just was like, well, I guess we'll never know.
The part that was like interesting about those to me, and the reason why like I kind of glommed onto them, is they were like enough of a puzzle for me in the sense that
Yeah.
like none of the solutions were really like very complicated. Like it didn't involve you like going way out of your way or anything. Like it's all pretty much the same. It's like, okay, I need to stand in one area and then like get this barrel to hit him one way or the other. And so knowing that like the parameters were so small, it was like, okay, there's only like a handful of ways that this can go.
Yeah.
So like let me figure this out, which I think is just like my approach, like why sometimes puzzle solving in games like I don't enjoy, where it's just like, no, like I need to just know the handful of rules. Same with like Breath of the Wild. I think why I enjoyed like the puzzle solving in Breath of the Wild compared to some other Zelda games is because sometimes I just felt like, oh no, I have like 5 things at my disposal, and so
Yeah.
like let me just like figure out which of these 5 I need to use. And that's how I felt about the DK coin, where it was like, yeah, like I can I didn't mind spending time on it just because I felt like the parameters were pretty clear.
That you already had the rules. Yeah. And that does make sense. I feel like that's actually true of all of the sort of like mini game encounters in this thing too, whether it's just finding the coin or beating the bad guys or doing the thing where you have to collect the green bananas as they disappear. That like it's one of the things that I remain like impressed with the Donkey Kong series is the ability to present these very like bite-sized challenges. But I will, and this is the point in the episode where I will fully admit to abusing both save states and the rewind function when playing this game. And for a lot of these like bite-sized challenges, or anything where you're going into like the barrel and collecting all the stars or whatever, that when I messed it up, I could just try it again. And it is something that is so revolutionary to the way you experience the game, that it feels natural. Like if you mess up one of these little mini challenges, you should get to try it again immediately if you want to. And so like I would encourage anyone who maybe played this game a little bit on like SNES back in the day or on a different virtual console, who then like gave it up because it is either too difficult or like whatever reason. I would say that it is absolutely worth reinvesting your time into now that you can just rewind on the SNES Classic Edition, or not Classic Edition, the Switch Online.
Yeah, I 100% like abused the rewind feature as well. And one of the reasons that you and I did not really enjoy Donkey Kong Country 2 is because that game is so punishing. Like
Yes.
the platforming, there's just a lot of like blind deaths where you're like, well, there was zero way that I could have known that was going to be there. And so then you
True
died
in this game as well.
Yeah, completely true in this game. But the difference is that we played Donkey Kong Country 2 on the Wii U Virtual Console, which did not have a rewind feature. So when you died, you either had to start at the beginning of the level, or if you were lucky enough to make it to the midpoint, you would start from there. This game,
there are also save states that you can enact on the
There are
Wii U,
save
but they're a
states,
little
but
bit clumsier. Yeah.
well, and it's save states, but it's not like rewind feature, so you couldn't just go
That's right,
back
that's
like
right.
3 seconds unless you knew that you were going like that it was there,
Yes.
and then you made a save state, which we definitely did, I think, at some point.
Never knew. That's why we call it a blind dead point. Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so with this game, like it makes me want to like with this game I abused rewind states like all the time. Like I just rewound because I was like, there's no way I'm doing this again. But I found that like such an enjoyable way to go through this game. It does make me want to go back and replay Donkey Kong Country 2, because I wonder if like I mean, I think obviously I would enjoy that game more, being able to
Yeah,
play that way. It also makes me wonder if, because like my memory, it, I can't even really say what my memory of Donkey Kong Country is, because I've like played that original game so much that it is,
totally.
like so
It's in your
ingrained in
bones.
me.
Yeah.
And so like, is the first game as unfair as the second and third game? Probably is. Like, my memory is it's not, but I was also, when I first experiencing it, a kid who could sink the time into just dying over and over and over again.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's that it's totally fair question. And I mean if you want to sort of go through and just sort of talk about some of the ways that either you think Donkey Kong Country 3 does or does not improve over 2, I am totally game to do that because I think that there are a lot of things that have nothing to do with how we played it that I think are better in DKC 3 versus DKC 2. And one of those is just sort of in the ways that the designers chose to flex, graphically speaking. Because Donkey Kong Country 2 uses a lot of parallax scrolling and like Mode 7 effects to sort of fake depth of field as you're playing the game. And, that make it really difficult to see where you are on a platform, right? Like they do this thing where um I'm thinking about the levels in Donkey Kong Country 2 where the water level is like raising and lowering and like there are like 3 or 4 different layers of background and you can see the water in the foreground and like in the and it all like it moves too much and it's like it's too much visual noise and that kind of thing is cut down on here considerably but like they're still making really smart choices about the sort of stuff that they can present. Like there's a series of levels here that are vertically based where there are waterfalls that you can travel in front of and behind. And if you're traveling behind the waterfall, then you have different enemies that you need to watch out for, like barrels or whatever. So there is this game does a really good job of faking depth of field without doing it in a way that is like visually confusing.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Another thing that I liked about like Donkey Kong Country 3 more than Donkey Kong Country 2 is I felt like, looking back on it now, like Donkey Kong Country 2 is kind of like the Japanese version of Super Mario Brothers 2, where they took a lot of the same like ideas from the first game and then just like made it like way harder, like all the bramble mazes and like all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas this Donkey Kong Country 3, I feel like they like they didn't feel the need to just like do more of the first game. So the like the aesthetic is pretty different. Like I think it had a different designer for like the enemies and stuff like that. Like it still carries that rare aesthetic, but like the enemies are different. They're not just a repeat of like the second or the first game. The levels I feel like are a little bit more back to basics.
Hmm.
And in this game, like I actually think they're the kind of novelty levels, like the one where you have that fish that's following you that will like
Yeah.
get angry and like eat you or like bite you if you don't feed it fast enough.
Yeah.
Like I actually think those are like not very successful. I didn't think they were very fun, but they're so few in this game, whereas I felt like those sort of like novelty levels kind of like dominated the second game a little bit more.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because like the those sorts of levels that stand out to me in DKC 2 are like the Squawks ones where you are in like the bramble maze, and you just are the bird the whole time. And like I know there are those sorts of levels here, but like they didn't bother me that much. There's the one where like you're swimming in poison water, and so left and right are reversed on your controller.
Oh yeah, can I? This was another one where like it was like, whew, thank goodness I'm playing this on the Switch because I will just break off that Joy-Con and flip it around, hold
No,
it
you
upside
did
down.
not.
Of course I did. It got a little tricky on like parts where you had to like you were holding it like it didn't always work because when you
Yeah,
in that level when you hop out of the poison water like it
then it
goes
goes
back
back.
to normal.
Yeah.
So you can't do it all the time. But yeah, the rest of the time I was like, just flip this Joy-Con around.
The level is objectively annoying, but I had a fun time with it. Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, I liked the sort of level variety here a little bit more, I think, than in the second game. Speaking of the kinds of levels where the poison water was, this game sort of has like two different kinds of water levels, and they're not even actually always water, or like filled with water. But like the pipe levels where you're like inside these giant tubes is aesthetically unique for these games, and felt like cool and fun and dangerous, and also reminded me a lot of one of the levels in Battletoads. I think level 7, but it might be level 8. I don't remember. Where you are in this like giant tube maze, and just look. First of all, anytime you can do a shout out to Battletoads, you know I'm there for it. And Rare being the developer of Battletoads, just is that extra just connective tissue that I so badly crave.
And it follows because when we talked about Donkey Kong Country 2, your main theory was that it was actually a sequel to Battletoads, less than a sequel to the original Donkey Kong Country.
I still believe it.
Yeah. Another thing that I think Donkey Kong Country 3 did better than Donkey Kong Country 2, and this is like a really tiny one, but like I liked Swanky Kong's like carnival mini game in this one so much more than I enjoyed those quiz show levels from Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah, well, because let's address something right up front about those like quiz show levels from DKC2, is that it's asking you to pay attention during the dialogue portions. And in this game, as in the second game, the dialogue is useless, right? You will encounter many NPC characters in both of these games. They will give you information or lore about these dumb little islands and these characters on them, which you do not care about. It's impossible for you to care about, right? Like, it is dumb stuff. And like there's something about the way the text is presented in these games that I have a hard time reading. They will frequently disappear before I'm done reading them. Like, and it's just like white text on no background. Just appearing on the graphic of I don't know. I hate it. I think it is some of the worst text as presented in a video game ever.
It was really odd choices. The one that got me was in when you would go into the house of one of the bears, like into one of the bears like stores or whatever.
And we will talk about these bears.
The text that what they were saying would be like usually at the top or whatever. But then your text was at the bottom and you had multiple choices, but you could only see one line at a time. Yeah. It must be like a resolution thing that doesn't make sense on like HD screens. But it was so bizarre. Can I tell you the one piece of dialogue that I did appreciate? And the bad guy, the ultimate bad guy in this game is not King K. Rool. It's Baron K. Rulenstein, which I liked a lot. And
do you think he's not King K. Rool? I feel like he still is King K. Rool.
Oh, right? I think they're related, but I do not think that they are.
King K. Rool, Captain K. Rool, and what's this guy's name?
A Baron K. Rulenstein.
Okay, you think they're related, but they're not.
I think so. But the one thing I really liked about in his dialogue in like the final boss battle is before you fight him. Well, actually, not the final boss battle, but we can get to that later. Before you fight him, you have to fight that like robot boss again. Yeah. And then after you destroyed the robot, some of his dialogue is like, "My wife's gonna kill me," and I just like that he's canonically married. I think he's the only one of these,
like that too.
like King K's who's married. So good for him.
Who was willing to put a ring on it? Do you think the rest of the King K's like emigrated, and that's why they lost the Steen at the end of their name at Ellis Island?
They were trying to make they were trying to make it in Hollywood.
Yeah. So yeah. That is funny, and I don't mean to be dismissive of all of the like jokes and stuff in this game, but I think there is a lot of it, a lot of just the text that is too much.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. Like
they're just relying on more words.
None of the like brothers bear stuff did I like actually like read very closely, and I think
let's get into the bears, right, cool. Mark. It is important that we discuss these bears because they are sort of the cornerstone of how the structure of this game is fundamentally different from the previous two Donkey Kong Country games. This game is non-linear to an extent, that there are worlds that you can approach in different orders, and you have to collect these sort of key items to either upgrade your like mode of transportation, from a boat to a hoverboat to another the hoverboat with skis. And you do these by interacting with these bear brothers. There are like 30 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 bears. And their names are Baffle, Barnacle, Barter, Bazaar, Bazooka, Benny, Bjorn, Blizzard, Blue, Blunder, Boomer, Bramble, and Brash. So Mark, of course, the first question I'm just going to ask you is, which of these bears is your favorite?
I don't remember. I'd like they all kind of blur together for me. So if there's 13 of them, does that mean that there's 13 like items that you can collect? Some of them come from bosses and like some of them don't. Because so the thing, okay, I really liked the exploration in this game. Exploration, kind of like air quotes, like it's not completely free form, but I liked that instead of just being a like go to point A to point B, like there was that opportunity for exploration and there were little secrets, and there's a whole like world that at the very like that like crematoa that you can access by whirring around the rocks, and then it kind of acts like the Star Worlds in kind of more modern Mario games where you have to earn those bonus coins and then you can unlock like all of the levels, and then you can defeat like the real final boss version of Bear, which I did not do because I didn't like enough like bonus ones.
There are so many of those B explosion coins that you have to collect in order to, because you need to spend 15 of them to access every single level in Crematoa, and I have only been able to access one of those levels.
I was able to get 3, and then it was just like, and then it was like no more. But I liked that, like I liked that exploration a lot. Like I thought that was a cool like plussing of the Donkey Kong Country formula. But when you're kind of, but I feel like I missed out on a lot of stuff there because I think I only got like 5 items maybe max, and there was one that kind of looked like chicken feet that you get really early that I still have no idea what like the utility of it is because I had it in my inventory the entire time. So I don't know if I did.
Is that the shell?
Oh, it might be the shell. It might be a shell.
I think you give the shell to one of these guys. Of course, I don't remember. But I think this to me is one of the. You're right that like the sort of like trade quest nature of it is fun and engaging. But it is hard to remember what any of the bears are interested in.
Oh yeah, or where they are, or like which world to go to. Yeah,
because they are so they're identical, but they wear different clothes. And they all have names that start with B. And it's impossible to express personality in any of these things. They all just look like kind of sleepy, dopey bears. And like, I really, really, it's not like, in Ocarina of Time when you're doing the trade quest, it is very easy to remember like, oh, I saw this weird guy in this weird town who was doing something strange. And I remember him saying that he wanted, a letter from whoever. And like that sort of stuff sticks in your brain a lot better in a game like that where the individuals taking participating in the trade quest have personality. These characters don't, and it is a big problem for the trade quest.
Yeah, and I feel like, or I guess I'm curious what I missed out on by not like going very far with it or like completing it, because it seems like some of them stop your forward progress, but then that's resolved pretty quickly because I finished the game, and so obviously like I didn't run up into any that like stop my progress, but I just wondered like what else is out there that I'm missing.
Yeah, did you do the one where you bring the bowling ball to the guy who loads you up into a cannon and shoots you up into like a little like hovering island?
No, but I wondered, that makes so much sense though, because like the hovering, because I remember being in that world with the hovering island and then expecting something to open up to get me there. But no, but like I don't even know where you got the bowling ball.
Yeah, I don't know where I got the bowling ball either. I think I traded for it or spent spent bear coins on it from the from barter on the first island.
So maybe barter. maybe if I had figured out that though that was a shell instead of like chicken feet, that and then traded the shell, maybe that would have kicked off like the other part of it that would have made I could have done a little bit more in there.
Yeah. So there's, I mean, there is like a deep sea of, a trading quest in there that I think, both you and I could probably benefit from going back into, and exploring a little bit better. But one of the things that, I beat this game a couple days ago, and have tried to go back in a couple times, but the game doesn't do, at least to my eyes, doesn't do a great job of telling you where you still have things to accomplish. Once you have finished a level, you get a flag on it that I think is based on whoever you were controlling when you finished it.
So that is true. It's either a pink flag for Dixie Kong or a blue flag for Kitty Kong. The one thing that is nice about the specific levels is that if you get all the bonuses in that level, there's also a yellow flag. So
Okay.
that's
All
how
right.
you can tell like if you got everything in that level.
Okay. Yes, I have seen this yellow flag. I guess I didn't. I didn't realize that is part of that. So that's that fixes it a little bit for me. And if I go back into it, I know which levels to like keep exploring. Mark, how did you feel about the way in which you collect banana birds?
Oh, so it's like a little mini game. You have to find the
Hmm.
caves and the caves are kind of like hidden. Um, I'd say lightly hidden. Oh, actually, I should uh qualify that twice because it's like I didn't find that many of them. So they're obviously better hidden than I'm giving them credit for. But it's like a little like Simon Says mini game that I didn't particularly care for.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. It's super easy, and each one is one turn further basically. And the first one you do is like three, which is if you can't memorize the order of pressing three buttons, I mean I don't know what to tell you. But yeah, there wasn't like a moment on any of these where I even like stuttered or stalled on it. Like it to me is just like it's sort of a gimme. You find the secret cave, and it's like, here, you should just get a banana bird. Mark, what's a banana bird? Did we
I
talk
don't
about
know.
this?
They look disturbing. I think they're
Yeah.
possibly the most disturbing like Nintendo foul since the like chicken faces in Twilight
Yeah.
Princess.
What is it? It's called like an uku,
Yeah,
O O
something like
C
that.
C O O, something like that. Yeah, those weird face chickens. Yeah, they're very strange, and when you collect them, so they're banana birds. They look like a banana that's been halfway
Half
peeled.
peeled.
Yeah, and the head is on the peeled half, and there's like a beak and eyes, and then like some feet that come out the bottom of it. It's an upsetting animal. I don't like that it exists in this game. But when you collect them, they hang out at Wrinkly Kong's cave. She lives in a cave, right?
She seems to live. Yeah, she does. Wrinkly's Save Cave.
Right.
Who,
That's
by the
right.
way, Wrinkly Kong not dead yet. For some
Not
reason,
dead yet.
I thought she was dead in Donkey Kong Country 2. And so when I first encountered her in this game, I was like, she's
It was confusing.
resurrected, but no, which would be, maybe not the biggest stretch. She's living in a cave. But
Oh, sure. Like Christ.
yeah.
I think that was a tomb, but okay, go ahead.
But no, I guess she's dead in Donkey Kong 64. So something
Right.
between Donkey Kong Country 3 and Donkey Kong 64 killed her.
But she's just living in this cave, and she's not as opposed to her appearance in DKC 2. She is not just like a withered granny like she is in the previous game, right? She's wearing like workout. She's an active granny.
She's an
She is
active
a
granny.
mall
Yep.
walker. Like she's old in body but young at heart. Because she also spends a lot of time playing the Nintendo 64. Mark, we need to talk about the Nintendo 64's role in this game because I find it to be wild.
It's really funny. Well, one thing about the development of Donkey Kong Country 3 is like the team that developed the first two games basically moved on to develop Donkey Kong 64, and this was left to a separate team at Rare, which is why like Donkey Kong Country 3, has like a different aesthetic. It has like a different lead composer than the second game. And I actually didn't notice that Wrinkly was playing the Nintendo 64, like that it was the Nintendo 64 that she was playing in those save caves. That's really funny.
So not only is she playing the Nintendo 64, she is playing Super Mario 64, and we know this
Oh wait, because
because
the music.
the music is Peach's castle music. That bum 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 bum.
That is so funny because I did not make that connection. I knew that it was Mario music because I was like, "Oh, that's interesting that they're using like an arrangement of a Mario
Yeah,
theme for the like save theme, but only sometimes." And I couldn't figure out like why some of the save caves had that music and some
yeah.
of them didn't. That makes so much sense. That is really funny.
It's really cool, and it's a fun little riff on the Peach's Castle theme too. Like it's not one for one it, but like it is definitely using the same themes. Sometimes when you visit Wrinkly, she's asleep in the chair, and the game is like, she probably wouldn't mind if you save.
Yeah.
I thought that was very charming, and also there's just something to, taking the like frequent encounters away from Cranky Kong and giving them to Wrinkly, because she's friendly to you, and Cranky is, a jerk. I guess he's cranky. But like, I don't know. There's just the game felt overall more positive than the previous games where you have to interface with Cranky all the time.
Yeah, I thought so too. Because really, you see Cranky most at Swanky's, like
Hmm.
uh, basically you're like throwing balls or baseballs or something at a target, and you're competing against Cranky in those iterations. And I feel like that's the most you see of him. Also, this game, as far as I am aware, unless she's hidden in like one of the levels I didn't see, is
Yeah, no Candy
completely
Kong.
no Candy Kong.
No Candy Kong.
Which immediately is a big
Makes it
boost.
the best game in the series. We've mentioned the Swanky Kong like ball throwing games a couple times here already. But there is also a boss fight that uses a similar mechanic, where you're going up against a snowman, that you are throwing snowballs at, and the perspective is like you're sort of behind the character, and you can either throw to the front row or the back row, and the snowman can appear in, anywhere sort of along the x-axis, and then in these two different positions, using a lot of the same mechanics as these mini games. How did you feel about that sort of integration, either as a mini game or sort of folded into the main gameplay in the form of a boss fight?
I liked the Swinkies minigame. Like, I actually thought that they were fun. I like that there's like 3 iterations and you choose the one that you want to do. Um,
Yeah.
I always
Which one is your favorite?
I always did the first one. I always did the one where
Head to head.
the head to head. Yeah, I always did head to head. And I liked that the snowman fight. I actually kind of liked most of the boss fights in the game. Again, heavily aided by the fact that if I messed up, I could just rewind instead of having to start over again, which I think I would then I wouldn't find as much enjoyment in them, because one of the things I liked about it was like the variety, and I thought that a lot of them were like a little bit aesthetically interesting. Not all of them, thinking of like that the ocean one, but very much aided by the fact that I could rewind and just like go back a couple seconds when I messed up.
Yeah, really cannot speak highly enough about the rewind feature when playing this game. All of the bosses, so much more palatable when you're able to rewind. It is a crime that these games didn't have something like that built into them in the first place, or even just like you can take an extra hit system, or something like a modern Donkey Kong Country game where like each Kong also has like a heart, or
Mm-hmm.
two if it's a little bit easier. But yeah, I also thought most of the bosses were cool. I didn't. I was stressed out by, or confused by, or just straight didn't like fighting that robot, the Chaos Robot, because for a long time I did not understand what was going on with the blades that spin around it.
Yeah, it doesn't, like, in video game language, it doesn't immediately make sense that you should be able
Yeah.
to jump on top of the blades.
And that the blades cannot hurt you. You
Yeah.
just need you need to jump on top of the blades. But like once then, that's actually something that I had to look up, because I was like, how am I supposed to, am I, because like you could pick up the other Kong and like throw them,
Yeah.
and it like looks like they kind of hit the head of the thing, and like does that count? So yeah, I eventually was just like, forget it, I'm looking it up.
That was one where like I benefited from the rewind feature because I was like, well, I couldn't figure it out either, and I was just like, well, I'm just gonna throw myself with this blade and see what happens.
Yeah.
Because knowing that like, oh, if that's not it, I'll just like back it up. Because I actually one of the things I thought was interesting in this game is that the bonus barrels. So in the first game, a lot of bonus areas are found by like carrying a barrel and then running into like a section of wall, and then it opens up and you go to the bonus area. This game does not employ that as far as I
At
know,
all.
like ever.
Yeah.
And so one of the things another way that I like abuse the rewind feature is I'd be like, oh, like is there a bonus thing over here? Like, let me just like throw myself over there and see if it is. Because if it's not, I'll
See
just
if there
back
is,
up.
yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so that also like, I mean, honestly, just increased my enjoyment of this game immensely.
And I mean, if any of this sounds like distasteful, where it's like, why would you want to play a game where you're like ridding yourself of the consequences? The just like visual and audio rewards of this game are high. Like there are varied enemy varieties and varied like level layouts and aesthetics, and like the end bosses, like Mark said, fun to see. They make a joke about their wife being mad at them. So like you're rewarded for experiencing the whole game, whether or not you're like holding yourself to the highest challenge throughout.
Yeah, and I think it really is just like how you want to experience this game because you obviously don't have to use the rewind feature, but I at this point in my life like feel very strongly that like challenge is not an important part to how I experience games. And so to me it is more fun to see as much of it as possible. And so to be like, okay, yeah, like if there's a barrel over there, like I'm just curious, like I would rather explore the level and not have to be like, okay, do I weigh like, man, I've gotten all
Yeah.
this way, so do I want to like risk it and go over there? And I understand that for some reason people that would be rewarding, but for me, like that's not how I wanted to play it.
Yeah, well, and there are also just like a ton of different times in this game where either you're on, a runaway bobsled, or like the elephant won't stop running, or whatever, where you just need to already know what's coming ahead, and like you can spend the time dying and memorizing and going over and over again, but like it just takes that, and that's all it takes is time, and when that doesn't feel like you're being rewarded with better skills, but just like the knowledge of what's there, that's not really rewarding anyway.
Yeah.
Mark, speaking of the elephant, let's talk about the animal buddies here. You and I famously have ranked the animal buddies in the Donkey Kong Country series. I do not remember what we ranked anything other than I know that Rambi is of course the best, right?
I think that's my memory as well. You know what? I feel like after playing, actually, when we did those rankings, you and I had not played Donkey Kong Country 3.
Yes.
And having now played this game, I think we did both Kiddy Kong and potentially Ellie the Elephant a little bit dirty.
Yeah.
Like Kiddy Kong for sure, I think would be higher in my esteem now than he was at the time. I think we put him at the bottom because we're like, oh, he's a dumb baby and I haven't played the game. Ellie, I don't think made it like super high either. But
Well, Ellie is strange to me because I don't know that there are any abilities that Ellie the elephant has that like feels like a fun animal buddy ability, but they use her a ton, and some of her limitations are really what they lean into in her levels.
I liked her being able to like suck up water
Yeah.
and then shoot it. But I agree with you that like the main highlights of the Ellie of using Ellie the elephant are, I mean, really, it's the like the mouse level where
Yeah.
she sees
There
a
are a couple
mouse.
mouse levels.
Yeah, that's right. Like where she sees a mouse. If she sees a mouse, in one level it like hurts her, like she'll die if she sees one in the light, and then the other one it uses the idea that she sees it and then she starts running really fast, so it becomes kind of like uh dealing with that
Like
speed.
a minecart level, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And both are like cool and interesting concepts. She can also suck barrels like closer
Right.
to her
Yeah.
when they're like far away. So it's all stuff that you have to sort of like balance around. But it almost makes me like, I don't know if there was just like a series of Ellie levels or like an Ellie, add-on whatever content. Where it's just like where you had to play as her. Like she almost feels mechanically different enough that she's like a different game almost.
Yeah, and we see the return of like legs or whatever the spider's called. I can't remember. Squitter.
Squitter the spider.
And then On Guard, of course. But I think there's like the bird that will travel above you, and there's a couple of like Squawks levels. But really, those are like the three main ones. Like I don't think we see Rambi at all.
No,
we don't see the like bouncy snake from Donkey Kong Country 2.
Yeah. Shoot. I thought you were gonna name like the ostrich. I was gonna be like Espresso, yes, but I can't think of the name of that bouncy snake. But yeah, I mean the game seems mostly to trade in Ellie on guard and Squitter the spider, and like I don't know, I've got my sort of Rattly.
Yeah.
I've got my sort of standard complaints about Squitter. Of like, I don't really think it's fun to make the platforms you have to traverse on.
I did not like the level where you're playing a Squitter and there's a cannon shooting at you.
Ugh,
and so
I just played this one tonight.
And so you have to like make the platforms as quickly as possible so that so you don't get hit. Not fun. Did not enjoy it.
Nope, too stressful. I don't like it. And I do like that there are like shields you can hide behind.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think that's cool. But yeah, it's funny because like that is an annoying level with like an annoying feature in it. But it only appears once, and like I have to applaud this game for coming up with those kinds of interesting ideas, presenting them once, and then just dropping them. Like I do think that's cool.
I also think that this game, de-emphasizes the animal buddies compared to the other games. Like the first game, they're integral to a lot of the bonus levels where you can like rack up a ton of one-ups. The second game, they introduce a bunch of new ones and then you use those a lot. This one, they do show up, like On Guard is used a lot in the water levels. You have to use Ellie in a boss fight. There's like levels where Squitter's required. Like they are there, but they don't feel as like important. Like Ellie gets the most, I would say, like screen time, and probably because she's the newest. But the other ones, like the animal buddies, feel like they feel appropriately used, but they don't feel as emphasized as they do in some of the other games.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. So there is, Mark, did you know there is also a Game Boy Advance version of this game?
Oh, I feel like I read something about this.
So, unlike the previous two Donkey Kong Country games, where there is a Donkey Kong Land, there may also be a Donkey Kong Land 3. But this game also had a GBA port where some of the things are different. But we didn't play it. I just wanted to bring it up here because it seems like an interesting little curiosity.
My understanding is that it has additional levels and I think a heavily reworked soundtrack.
Interesting. So there is also a Donkey Kong Land 3 in addition. Those Donkey Kong Land games are weird, man.
I actually don't know that I've ever played one. Maybe we should do that.
Ooh, I don't know. You're not going to get me to commit to that on this episode. I have one of them on my 3DS, and I tell you what, these pre-rendered graphics do not look great on the Game Boy. Not that they look great on the Super Nintendo, so maybe shut my mouth. Okay, I think that is most of what we can talk about in this level or in this game. Mark, would you recommend that people play this?
Absolutely. If you like I feel like the Donkey Kong Country, those first three, now I can say truthfully, like those first three Donkey Kong Country games are a very specific type of platforming. And if you enjoy that, I definitely think it's worth checking out. I actually maybe almost would say if you've never played a Donkey Kong Country game, no, that's probably too crazy. No. Start with the first one, but maybe skip the second one. I like the third one a lot. I had a ton of fun. It was really fun to play a Donkey Kong Country game that felt familiar, but is also very different from the first two games. And to have
Yes.
it be like a brand new experience was really enjoyable.
Yeah, and I will echo that. Like, especially if you are a fan of the original Donkey Kong Country, this is likely a game that you missed, right? Like, you have every reason in the world to have not played this game when it originally came out, and every reason in the world to have not played very much of this game when it originally came out. And I would say that any of the complaints that you would have had about it at the time are ameliorated by your ability to rewind or to save states. One of I was gonna go off about no. You know what? I am gonna go off on it. It's the thing that happens in Super Nintendo games and specifically in Donkey Kong Country games is that you have the ability to rack up a lot of extra lives. But when you do so, and then you save the game and turn it off, all of your lives go
It's
away.
so
You're back
annoying.
down to 3 lives. But if you can just do a save state here, then those 40 lives that you racked up from just existing in the first like 2 worlds or whatever, you get to keep. That is a nice feature. One thing I did notice is that I wasn't collecting bear coins as quickly as I might have otherwise, because I think you collect a bear coin, you die, you play the level again, you collect the bear coin again. So you may have to do a little like intentional bear coin hunting if you were playing using save states.
Oh yeah, that's another small thing is that like when you complete a bonus barrel in this game, like it marks it like you are done with it. It's if you die, you don't have to
Yeah.
go back and redo it again, which is different from at least the first game. I can't remember if
Oh
the
yeah,
second game worked
good
that
point.
way.
Yeah, and those are for the bee explosion, the bonus coins.
Yeah.
And the bear. Let me ask you this: did you get enough bear coins in to buy the mirror?
Yes, because Swankies, like you spend a couple of
Oh,
coins
sure.
and then you can then if you win, you farm like I think you get like 5 or 8 or something like that.
Yeah. I think I've got 49 bear coins right now. I need to get one more in order to buy this mirror, and then use it on I forget what.
I can't
Again,
even remember what it does.
it's you give it to one of the Bear Brothers, and there are 13 of them, and they're all the same, so it's impossible to remember. All right, so that's gonna do it for our discussion on Donkey Kong Country. No, I had one last thing I wanted to discuss. The title of this game: Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble! Exclamation point. First of all, too long. Title's too long.
It's a real tongue twister.
It's a real tongue twister. Second, why isn't it Triple Trouble?
Well, I think it's because I don't have a good answer. I was going to say that it's because like Donkey and Diddy are missing, or because it's like her and Kitty teamed up, but I refuse to accept either of those as adequate answers.
I'm just saying it's the third game, so it should be Triple Trouble. Also, there's good alliteration in Triple Trouble. Come on.
I know, because that was the other one I was going to say is maybe it was for alliteration, but Triple Trouble's right there.
It undoes the alliteration. All right. Well, I find that to be.
Oh, actually, I think
disappointing.
we can really fix this because it'd be Donkey
Yeah.
Kong Country and then Dixie Kong's. No, never mind.
I mean, Diddy's Kong Quest is also too long, also a mouthful, but there's that strained pun in there, that Kong Quest, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I think that's worth it. But Dixie Kong's Double Trouble! Exclamation point.
It's a little much.
I don't know. It's a little much. Should be Triple Trouble. All right, Mark, let's close this out. Of course, I would love to know what your experience is with Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble. If you would like to write into us and let us know if you played this game when you were growing up, if you played it now and you are growing up now, whenever you played this game, we'd love to hear about it. You can write to us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at
@gmail.com.
and we can talk about it on future episodes. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share things. It would help us out a lot if you did. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell. And the show is at Nin Cart Society. There's also a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8-Bit Betty. You can get more of his music by going to 8bitbetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Eller saying the less we need to talk about the banana birds, the better. And thank you for listening.
Do you know what an NPE is? Yeah, that's okay. No one does. It's a non-paternal event, and it's what they call it when you do a DNA test and find out that you actually are the milkman's son, or your parents used a sperm donor, or you were adopted and no one ever told you. I'm Eve Sturgis, host of Everything's Relative, where I invite my guests to talk about DNA discoveries and how spitting into a tube has changed their lives for better or worse. Episodes are out every other Friday. Find them on Campfire Media or subscribe wherever you find your podcasts.
Campfire.